but this is his last night at Oasis. He's moving back to Washington, D.C. on Monday. So we just want to say thank you for Josh being a part of our community here, and he's helped a lot with worship when we've had short staffing in that area. So we really appreciate all of his help, and we want to give him a warm goodbye. So thank you, Josh. Okay. I'm channeling my inner Matthew tonight because he's not here, and all right, so tonight I'm speaking on friendship, and I just want to start with a story. Some of you may have heard this story before. A mother came to Gandhi, and she said, "Tell my son to stop eating sugar." And Gandhi said, "Okay, come back in 2 weeks and bring your son." And so the mother went away confused, and she came back in 2 weeks and brought her son. And Gandhi said, "Stop eating sugar." And the mother was angry and said, "Why couldn't you have told him that 2 weeks ago when I came?" And Gandhi said, "Because 2 weeks ago I was still eating sugar." So when I was coming up with this topic, I was telling Matthew, I can't speak on how to have healthy friendships because I don't even know how to have healthy friendships in Hong Kong. It's very difficult. As I'm sure most of you may have struggled with this, coming to Hong Kong from another place or growing up here and having a lot of your friends leave. It's very difficult here. And so tonight I just want to encourage you that there is hope, and you can have deep, meaningful relationships with people here. And I want to encourage you in that. So we'll start with that. So the first thing I want to speak on is why friendships are so important. So I know a lot of people, when they prioritize their time, they always put hanging out or chilling at the bottom of the list because they don't hold it in a priority in their lives. And I want to encourage you that friendships should be a priority in your life. What's the Sunday school answer? Jesus, right? Thank you. It's important because Jesus said it is. It's important because Jesus had meaningful friendships in his life, and he made them a priority. So we'll go through a couple of those examples. We saw his friendships with his disciples. He's given us a lot of really deep ways that he's loved his disciples. He washed their feet. He died for them. He appeared to them after he rose multiple times. And that's just showing his love for his disciples and his friendship with them. They dined together. They traveled together. They prayed together. So that's Jesus just showing his love for his disciples. So we should emulate that as well. If Jesus did it, we should do it, right? And also he showed it through his love for Lazarus. So Lazarus was one of his close friends. And if you've heard this story about how he rose Lazarus from the dead, it's really an incredible story of love, and even the way that he broke down and wept when he saw how Mary and Martha were distraught after Lazarus died. So we can see that Jesus has gone through the same problems that we have. He's lost friends. He's made friends. He's moved away from friends. So Jesus understands, and he's gone through everything that we're going through. Maybe one of the most famous friendships in the Bible is Jonathan and David. They have an amazing story, and I just love reading about them because they were such great buddies, and even to the point of trying to save each other's lives from Saul. So that's a really cool story. If you haven't read about Jonathan and David, I encourage you after this to look into that. So that's another example of how God wants us to put friendships in a priority in our lives. And the last verse just says, a friend loves at all times. And aren't we just called to love our neighbors? And what a better way to show that than to have friends and show your love to your friends. If you don't believe Jesus, or if you're still seeking and aren't sure about this Jesus guy, you can believe Aristotle, because he spoke on friendship as well. And so basically, I don't know a lot about Aristotle, so please don't ask me any questions that I'm not talking about because I don't know. But Matthew helped me to kind of understand this concept. So Aristotle basically was discovering what does it mean to have a good life, and what does it mean to be a good person? And those were his two questions. And he was trying to seek out, what does it take to have a good life? So he actually said that having friends seems to be the greatest external good, which is pretty amazing after all of the studying that he did. And he said, since it's better to love than to be loved and to benefit others rather than to benefit yourself, you actually are benefiting yourself by having friends. And that was his conclusion. So we need to love and benefit others to live the good life, according to Aristotle. And so it's mutually beneficial, according to him. And then, next slide. So he says, the friendship of decent people is decent and increases the more often they meet, and they seem to become still better from their activities and their mutual correction. So it's actually helpful for us to be friends with other people. How selfish is that? And how amazing is that? So Aristotle also appeals to human nature to show that people cannot be happy without friends. So that's just some other research that he did. So now that you understand why friendship is so important, let's just talk about what a Christ-like friendship looks like. So, okay, we understand that friendship is important. And so how can we do this? How can we emulate this in our lives? So the first one I want to talk on is hospitality. And I don't know if any of you remember the talk that we had at Oasis, and the topic was hospitality and how hospitality is a Christ-like trait. That was a very interesting talk. I believe that was last year. I have a few friends that have practiced amazing hospitality and have shown me incredible generosity in inviting me over and having me for meals and inviting me for a place to stay and just really going out of their way to open up their homes and just be hospitable. 1 Peter 4:8-10 says, above all, love each other deeply because love covers a multitude of sins. Offer hospitality to one another without grumbling. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. I also want to speak a little bit on this, that hospitality doesn't have to refer to your home, so it doesn't have to specifically be your home. You can be hospitable at a higher level and welcome people into your life. And you can be hospitable with your life and with yourself and welcome people into you by being a good host of your time and energy and just welcoming people to spend time with you and be around you. That's part of being hospitable as well. The second quality I want to speak on is fellowship. Does anybody know our fun captain, Lawrence? He is very good at encouraging fellowship. That's one of his gifts. So I want to encourage all of you that fellowship shouldn't be low on your priority list. You should make it a priority. Make time for people. Hang out with people. Talk to people. Acts 2, which talks about the early church, says, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. So they actually devoted themselves to teaching and to fellowship. They devoted themselves to breaking of bread and to prayer. They devoted themselves to spending time at meals together and to praying together and building relationships because they knew that was vital to the early church, and it's vital to us too. The third one I want to talk on is encouragement. So we have a very encouraging friend. I want to give you an example of Nicole. She's very encouraging, and she is always asking if she can pray for you. And even tonight, she couldn't be here, but she called and asked if she could pray for me, which I thought was amazing. And her encouragement just means so much to me. And I'm sure all of you can think of one or two people in your lives that just really, every time they see you, they have something nice to say to you, or that one comment that they say just really makes your day because you know that it comes from their heart, and they're really trying to encourage you in your friendship. So 1 Thessalonians 5:10-12 says, he died for us so that whether we are awake or asleep, we may live together with him. Therefore, encourage one another and build each other up, just as in fact you are doing. So it's not just giving someone a kind compliment, it's really building each other up. And what an amazing picture that is for us. And Mother Teresa also said, a kind word can be short and easy to speak, but their echoes are truly endless. And I know that I can certainly think of a few times when people have said a very short or a kind word in passing, but it's really stuck with me, and I still think back to that time and really think, wow, someone noticed that about me, or I didn't know that about myself, and it really does stay with you. So if you think something nice about someone, you should share it with them. It would really make their day. Also, I want to talk about this last verse that I found that I don't think, I've probably read this verse a million times, and I just realized that this is actually in the Bible. It says, Proverbs 26:18-19, Like a maniac shooting flaming arrows of death is one who deceives their neighbor and says, I was only joking. So I just want to spend a couple minutes on this because I know it's in my personality and in some other people's personalities to have a very biting sense of humor. And I think that's hilarious, let me just tell you, because I enjoy that sense of humor. But we need to be careful that when we're joking with people that it doesn't stick. There's some statistic, right, that says like 40% of everything you say that's a joke is actually truth. Have you ever heard that? So we just need to be mindful of when we're joking with people, do it in love and do it without shooting flaming arrows of death. Don't do that. Okay? I love that verse. That's awesome. All right. So the next one, the fourth one, is generosity. So generosity can be exercised in a lot of ways, right? We can be generous with everything we have, with our time and with our resources. I already spoke a little bit about being hospitable with your time, but also be generous with your time, okay? If you're going to say, all right, I got to get my fellowship in today, Starbucks, 15 minutes, let's go. How's your day? What do you need prayer for? Come on. Be generous with your time and just make it a priority in your life. And if you make it a priority, you will be generous if it's something that's that important to you. With resources. So 1 John 3:17 through 19 says, if anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need, but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with actions and in truth. This is how we know that we belong to the truth and how we set our hearts at rest in His presence. There are many ways that you can show this. I've heard some amazing stories about people giving away things that seem important to this world because they love another person. If you see an opportunity for that, or you know of someone that's in need of something and you can bless that person, it will bless you in return. Don't do it because it will bless you in return, but I can promise you that you'll be blessed by being generous. One example I have of that is our Great Wall Marathon coming up. So tomorrow, Mabel and myself and Kenny, most of you know, are going to Beijing to run in a half marathon on the Great Wall of China. I'm shaking in my boots. I'm really nervous, actually, so pray for me and for Mabel and for Kenny. And I think this is a really great example of us being generous with our resources, because if you can go to the website, Mike. So this is our fundraising page, and if you haven't been there yet, I encourage you to go, and if you can't donate at this time, just go to the page and kind of check it out. It's pretty cool. So it has a story about why we're running, what we're raising funds for, and each of us has our own page with our own story of why we're running the marathon. So it's pretty neat. And it shows our little man up there with the funds that we've raised. We've actually raised over 67% so far. Some of the donations have come from offline. But I thought this was just an amazing picture of how people have been generous with their resources, because most of the donations that we've received are from our friends and from people that just want to encourage us in our training. And that was a small part of why we're doing this, is so that we can be encouraged when we're running in the gym and wondering why we're still on the treadmill when we could be doing other things. And so it's been really, really great. And we've been blessed with things other than donations, too. We've had people offer to run with us. We've had friends that have made us healthy meals. We've had people that have offered for us to have some materials that we would need for the race. So we've just been blessed with prayers and support from everywhere. So I think it's really important to remember, if you ask people to be generous or you ask people to fellowship, that you have to give people the opportunity to do so. So this was a great opportunity that Kenny and Mabel and I created for our friends to practice generosity, and it's just been amazing. So if you want people to do something, give them the opportunity to do it, or create an opportunity for someone to do that. And I think this is a really great example, and I'm just so excited about how everyone has been involved in this. Just a side note as well, we're thinking about going and doing a trip. We tried to do one last year, and it didn't really work out with the dates, but we would love for everyone to come down and see where all of the food that we're raising money for is going. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Okay, so now we've talked about some of the qualities in a Christ-like friendship, and now I will talk about some obstacles to a Christ-like friendship, because I told you at the beginning it's very hard to have friendships in Hong Kong, and so I think we need to explain why. don't take this the wrong way. I'm not saying if you have a weird personality, you can never have friends. I realize that looks like that, but it doesn't. It's not what I mean. So I want to talk about basically the difference between being an introvert and between being an extrovert. Because I think a lot of people don't realize that they're on an extreme end of the scale, or that they're even on one end of the scale that they think they're on, and they're not actually that personality type. So let me just explain to you what being an introvert and what being an extrovert means. So introverts draw their energy from being alone or being in a quiet place, and extroverts draw their energy from being around others and being in a social setting. Okay, so introverts and extroverts, it's not about how much you talk. I really like to speak, but I don't like to talk. I'm on the extreme end of the introvert scale. So you might not think that because I'm up in front and speaking and I enjoy doing so. Introverts aren't like hiding in a corner somewhere and don't want to see the light of day. That's not what it is. It's about where you draw your energy from and where you expend your energy. Okay? So if you find yourself on either side of the spectrum, you'll need to understand how the other type of person operates. So if you're an extreme extrovert and you're trying to build a friendship with me, and your way of doing that is running up to me and like, how's your day? How are you going? What are you doing? Like, blah, 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 blah. I'm just going to like shut down because you are drawing all of my energy, okay? So let me just go to these tables, and I think hopefully everyone will be able to pick out one or two things that are helpful for you with these. So how to care for introverts. So if you have a friend that is on the introverted side of the scale, let's just look at a couple of these, and hopefully one or two will stand out to you. So respect their need for privacy. Never embarrass them in public. Let them observe first in new situations instead of just hopping right in and getting involved. They need to look around and see what's going on. Give them time to think. Don't demand instant answers. Don't interrupt them. Give them advance notice of expected changes in their lives. Give them a 15-minute warning to finish whatever they're doing. This works at in the office. Like if you know someone that's an introvert and you like run up to their desk and you're like, hey, I need this file tomorrow, and by the way, did you do that thing yesterday? That person's brain is still on the task that they were working on. So you need to kind of like slowly introduce, hi, I'm your coworker. You don't need to do that, but do you know what I mean? Do you know anybody like that? Okay, so reprimand them privately. Teach them new skills privately. Enable them to find one best friend who has similar interests and abilities. Don't push them to make a lot of friends. Respect their introversion and don't try to make them into an extrovert. Okay? So if you're an extrovert, this might be helpful for you to understand why some people are the way that they are. So let's do the opposite now. How to care for extroverts. So if you're an introvert like me, I need to understand this a little better. Respect their independence. Compliment them in the company of others. Accept and encourage their enthusiasm. Allow them to explore and talk things out. Thoughtfully surprise them. Understand when they're busy. Let them dive right in. Offer them options. Make physical and verbal gestures of affection and let them shine. So I call this an obstacle to a Christ-like friendship because I think we just need to be aware of other people's personalities. And it's not that you can't be friends with other people, but it sure does help to understand how other people operate, right? It sure helps to understand, and you don't get offended if someone has a different personality than you. And obviously there are a million other personality types, but these are just two that I chose. So hopefully that helps. The second obstacle is not addressing the person as a whole. So everyone is made up of 5 areas. And those are physical, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, and social. Can anyone think of a friend that they have that is purely a social friend, that you just hang out to have fun, or you only see that person at parties, or you can only talk about what happened last weekend, blah, blah, blah? That is only a social relationship. You aren't building a Christ-like friendship with that person because you're only feeding one part of that person. I think you all know what I mean by physical, so we're not going to go there. All right, intellectual would be something like if you only talk to that person about work, or you only talk to that person about politics, or you have high philosophical discussions about whatever philosophical people talk about. You're only feeding the intellectual part of that person, and you need to get to know what's going on in their lives, feed the emotional part of them, give them a hug, feed the physical side of them once in a while. So you really need to form a friendship around all 5 parts of a person. And that's how you really grow a meaningful, deep relationship. So if you are with a person and you consistently find yourself talking about the same things, or you don't veer into the other 5 parts of that person and you want to grow your relationship, I would suggest just taking an inventory of your relationship with that person and just seeing, is there another part of this person that I can explore? Get to know their family, their culture, their political beliefs. So just try to explore different sides of people that are uncomfortable to you, and that really will help you grow a deeper relationship with people. The last obstacle that I want to touch on is putting your hope in man. And I think everyone has done this at least once or twice, in my case, a lot of times. I've put my hope in man. And friends are amazing. And God says that love never fails. Unfortunately, the only pure love is from God. So we cannot put our hope in man. It's very important to understand that. So do not put your trust in princes, in human beings who cannot save. When their spirit departs, they return to the ground. On that very day, their plans come to nothing. Isaiah says, stop trusting in mere humans who have but a breath in their nostrils. Why hold them in esteem? And the last one in Proverbs says, the righteous choose their friends carefully, but the way of the wicked leads them astray. So we can see even Jesus was betrayed by his friends, right? Even Jesus was hurt. Even Jesus' disciples fell asleep when he asked them clearly to stay awake. And Jesus was hurt by his friends as well. So can't we expect the same from our friends? So I'm not trying to end on a downer here, but I know that we all have been hurt at one time or another in our lives through friendships. And we need to remember to keep our hope in the Lord. But that shouldn't discourage us from making meaningful, deep relationships with people. So that's all of the obstacles that I'm going to talk about. And I want to spend an extended time in discussion tonight to encourage you. I'm giving you an opportunity for fellowship so that you can practice what I just talked about. So we'll put some discussion questions up on the screen. I have 4 different questions here. And then I have a reflection time at the bottom because this isn't a very comfortable thing to talk out loud about, but just think about, maybe at the end you can pray about it or after when you go home. Would I be friends with myself? That's a hard question, right? Would I be friends with myself? So just kind of do a personal inventory of the things that we've talked about and see, would I be friends with me? I think that's a hard question. So maybe if we have a small group tonight, so let's just do groups of 4 or 5, maybe just split up into 2 groups over here, and we can just talk for about 20 minutes about friendships. And feel free to talk about things that are not up there. That just gives you a guide. Okay?